Back again with Rudy Giuliani's Common Sense. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. Today we face another time of turmoil, of anger, very serious partisan division. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. We're not a perfect country. They weren't perfect men and women, and neither are we. But they did it better than anyone else, and that has to be our goal, to keep America a leader. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we are able to reason. We're able to talk, we're able to discuss, we're able to analyze, we're able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's begin. Today we're going to discuss and show you Victor Shokin's testimony, the rest of it, and deal with some of the distortions and lies that the Biden people, the Democrats, and the corrupt press have given to you. And I think we're going to be able to disprove them completely with solid evidence, something Democrats don't believe in: evidence, proof, witnesses, documents, tapes. That's what we're going to use. So let's sum up where we are. Real simple. I mean, in the last episode, we showed you Biden's statement. Biden said, "I pressured the president to fire the prosecutor general," and we showed you Shokin testifying and the tape of it, the video of it. And Shokin said exactly the same thing and added the fact that the purpose of it was because he was getting too close to the son, Burisma, and also Zlochevsky. So that's where we are. That's what we've proven. We've proven with two witnesses and a tape recording and a very, very important document, the money laundering document, which is what I would consider a smoking gun, which conclusively shows that Hunter Biden and his firm were involved in a major money laundering scheme. How is Shokin's testimony? And what is his testimony after all? His testimony is that Biden pressured President Poroshenko to fire him because he was hot on the trail of Hunter Biden, Mykola Zlochevsky, Hunter Biden's crooked billionaire boss, and the company Burisma that was paying both of them. That was Shokin's testimony. Who corroborates that? See if you can remember. You know the best corroboration? Joe Biden. That's what Joe Biden says on tape. What does it matter if Shokin's corrupt or not? He's saying the same thing Biden is saying. What, is Biden telling the truth, but Shokin lying? Let's listen to Shokin for a second, and let's listen to him describe what happened. Then there came a time, if I'm reading your affidavit correctly in the prior statement, I was forced to leave office under direct and intense pressure from Joe Biden and the U.S. administration. In my conversations with Poroshenko at the time, he was emphatic that I should cease my investigations regarding Burisma. When I did not, he said that the U.S., via Biden, were refusing to release U.S. dollars $1 billion promised to Ukraine. He said he had no choice, therefore, but to ask me to resign. Do you remember that conversation with him?
Мэр прочитал часть вашего. Almost the way it's written there.
Yes.
The fact is that I am, as a patriot, I was put in a situation where I have to quit so that my country gets that money.
The president made it clear to you that the real reason he wanted you to resign was because of the pressure from the U.S. administration and Biden.
Но
Because otherwise they wouldn't get the $1 billion loan guarantee.
но вместе с тем давление со стороны Байдена.
Байден требует тебя уволить.
Yeah, literally, Biden demands that you are dismissed.
And now that we've heard Shokin, let's go to the infamous tape of Biden, sort of the magic part, the part that proves the crime, maybe in a sentence or two. You listen to Biden saying essentially the same thing as Shokin has said and corroborating. Listen.
So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if I was summing up now or opening, that's what we call corroboration. Shokin can be believed because he's corroborated by Joe Biden. And there's any question, at least as to one part of the case, Biden pressured Poroshenko to fire the prosecutor general. The crime of bribery, extortion, is defined as making an offer or using pressure, making an offer of something of value to get official action. There's the case. Then Shokin adds the corrupt motive, because it's corruptly offering, corruptly pressuring. And the corrupt motive was because he was on the heels of Hunter Biden, the big, gigantic Burisma company, and Zlochevsky risking maybe having to lose that $5 billion that he stole. It was on tape also, but let's go to another document, introduce another document to this. This is called an affidavit. This is a document under oath given by Shokin, and I'll just read to you from paragraph 8. The entire portion relating to this will be available on my website, so you can read it. And it says, this is Shokin under oath, penalties of perjury, that says, the truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings, a natural gas firm active in Ukraine, and Joe Biden's son was a member of the board. I assume Burisma, which was connected with gas extraction, had the support of the U.S. Vice President Joe Biden because his son was on the board of directors. On several occasions, President Poroshenko asked me to have a look at the criminal case against Burisma and consider the possibility of winding down the investigation actions in respect of this company, but I refused to close this investigation. Therefore, I was forced to leave office under direct and intense pressure from Joe Biden and the U.S. administration. So we have Shokin saying it to me on video. We have Shokin under oath. And then we have other proof to support Shokin as to the reason why this happened. The reason why the firing took place was because he was getting too close to Burisma, Biden, and the big rich Zlochevsky, who had bribed Biden to protect him. And Biden moved in and did his job. But let's go on with the corroboration. So how do we corroborate Shokin? Remember, I told you last time, the month of February 2016 is the key month in this case. And here's why it's the key month in this case. Everything happens in February of 2016. A year or so earlier, a year and a half earlier, Zlochevsky had bribed Biden, made a deal that Biden's son would get paid millions. And it's possible we may be able to show that Biden was also getting something for himself. But he was going to get paid money in order to protect the company, so it wouldn't be taken away from Zlochevsky, who had fled from Ukraine and was afraid that the government would take over his company. Well, the chickens came home to roost in February of 2016. On February 2nd of 2016, Shokin Kulyuk, who's his assistant, who you'll be hearing from eventually, conducted an arrest on the Burisma office. I mean, this has got to be, in Zlochevsky's world, this has to be catastrophic. And all of a sudden, the protector had to be brought into action. So Biden calls Poroshenko, and Biden starts telling Poroshenko, repeating to Poroshenko, because he had been saying it for several months, it's time to get rid of Shokin. Now, how do we know that? I'll tell you how. February 2nd, 2016 is the date of the raid on Burisma. Biden calls Poroshenko on February 5th, February 11th, February 18th, February 19th. This is not usual. These guys didn't talk, on the phone every day. And just so happens that in the middle of this catastrophic action against Burisma, the company that Biden was employed to protect, we've got these 4 and possibly more phone calls. Be interesting to get the transcripts of these calls, wouldn't it? Right? Be interesting to see what they were talking about. What do you think they were talking about? Well, I'm going to tell you what they were talking about. I don't have any doubt. They were talking about the fact that this guy Shokin was getting a little too close. And the money laundering document is the smoking gun. There, Latvia identifies the fact that Biden is under investigation. There, it identifies Biden as being involved in the money laundering of what looked like about $14+ million, with the amount left to him left out. And that happened on February 16, 18, right in the middle of all this. And that's exactly when Shokin gets fired. Corroborates the fact that Shokin was fired because of what he was doing against Burisma, against Zlochevsky, against Hunter Biden. It's not just his son that Biden was protecting. That seemed to be the case when this case first started. But this investigation has revealed conclusively that the big bribe here was Biden protecting Zlochevsky, protecting the $5 billion he stole, and protecting his company. And now we'll take a short break. My favorite magazine. Welcome back. So I know you've seen this before, but let's now take a look one more time at that money laundering document, which is the smoking gun. It makes it clear that Hunter Biden, Burisma were under investigation, if there's any doubt in anybody's mind about that now. And beyond that, you will see in future episodes, including the next one, that Shokin is corroborated by 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 witnesses on the point that he was fired because he was investigating Biden, Zlochevsky, and Burisma. There is no question about it. One of the other pieces of proof that corroborates Shokin are the lies that the Bidens have told. In the context of a criminal case, when you lie about it, it's called a false exculpatory statement, and it can be used in evidence against you to show consciousness of guilt, to prove that corrupt. Where, remember I said, to prove bribery, you have to show corruptly offered something of value in exchange for official action. Well, one of the things that can prove corrupt is how many times you've lied. The lie can be used against you as, they call it, evidence of a guilty mind, evidence of a corrupt mind. So here are the lies we've been hearing over and over again. Gosh, the charges are debunked. I must have read that 1,000 times. Every time I read it in the New York Times, the Washington Post, I see it on CNN, I see it on MSNBC, I see it in Time Magazine, or wherever I see it. The charges are debunked. I say to myself, are you stupid or corrupt? Of course the charges haven't been debunked. Where's the report? If charges are debunked, there's a report. These lazy, corrupt reporters don't even ask to see the report. You're going to hear a witness later on named Durkash who went through the entire prosecutor's file just about 2 months ago. There's no evidence that anything was debunked. If anything, what he says is there's substantial proof of very, very serious criminality that hasn't been followed up on. So every time you hear debunked, it isn't a mistake. It's a lie. And why are they lying? They're lying because they're guilty. That's how you get the fancy term false exculpatory statement. Second, they say there's no evidence of wrongdoing. Well, now you can contradict them because you've seen the evidence of wrongdoing. I've shown it to you. I showed you Biden's own admission. I've showed you the testimony of Shokin. I've showed you the money laundering document that is a smoking gun showing that their crime of money laundering was committed. Showed you other documents that corroborate the fact that this happened. Even if you have some doubt as to it happened, to say there's no evidence of wrongdoing is a lie in the face of everything that's been revealed. And how these reporters can keep writing it and put it on television and no integrity. Their hatred of the President of the United States is so pathological that I don't know if they just lose reason, common sense, or they just feel that any means is justified to remove the president they hate so much. And then they say, Biden people say, Hunter was not a subject. That's why I showed you the money laundering document twice. I wanted to show you right in the file. It says that Hunter is a subject. When we go on later and we go through the entire file with Mr. Durkash, you're going to see there's no question that Hunter Biden was a subject. That's the third lie. It amazes me, and I don't know the answer, to how they can keep repeating these things just because they hate the president so much. I mean, what's happened? What's happened to our country that this can happen? And then Biden says, Biden people say, oh, Biden got rid of Shokin because Shokin was corrupt. Since when did Joe Biden get so interested in corruption in Ukraine? I mean, for example, if he was so interested in corruption in the Ukraine, how did he have his son working for the crookedest guy in the Ukraine, Mykola Zlochevsky, and paying him millions and millions and millions? How did that happen? Oh, he says, I didn't know. He didn't know. This is a New York Times article, right here. New York Times article by a gentleman named James Risen, who now I think regrets having written it. And it says, way back in December 8th, 2015, before any of the bribes happened, it explains this very, very corrupt relationship. It explains that Hunter Biden is being employed by Mr. Zlochevsky and Burisma Holdings, and that Hunter Biden has no qualification for the job. And in fact, he's got some things that would suggest that he shouldn't have a job like this. In 2014, I'm reading from the article now, he was discharged from the Navy Reserve after testing positive for cocaine use. He received a commission as an ensign in 2013, and he served as a public affairs officer. I mean, it also raises the question, he was over 40 years old. How did he get in the Navy? Think Joe pulled a few strings to get him in the Navy? And then the kid couldn't last a year without blowing a cocaine test. And then you go back and you see that he's got this problem. Why Why do they put him in this position? I mean, I wonder, why do they put him in the position? Then it shows that he's had some very, very bad experiences in business, including a company called Paradigm Companies that was involved in a lot of lawsuits and involved a Ponzi scheme. And well, like, he's just not qualified for the board. No question about it. So the article raises the question that one of Biden's responsibilities is supposed to reduce corruption in Ukraine. And it says the involvement of the vice president's son with Mr. Zlochevsky's firm undermined the Obama administration anti-corruption message in Ukraine. Undermined it. It blew it apart. I mean, every Ukrainian knew what the New York Times is avoiding. This was a payoff. Zlochevsky wasn't hiring Hunter Biden or Devin Archer. He was hiring Joe Biden. It was clear right from the beginning. Now, you get an article like this. I don't know, did anybody show Obama? Did Obama ever call Biden in and say, hey, Joe, this looks real bad. This is kind of unethical. Maybe we better stop this. You know, if Obama had done this, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But you're going to find out in the course of our expose that there was a lot of corruption going on during the Obama administration in Ukraine. Ukraine became a corruption field for certain Democrats, not just Joe Biden. And it goes back before Joe Biden. So maybe Obama had a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil about this. But any ethical president would have called the vice president in and said, Joe, what the hell are you doing with your son who is challenged by a serious drug problem, and he's working for one of the most crooked companies? And Obama's State Department would have told him, Burisma is one of the most crooked companies in the Ukraine and one of the most crooked men in the Ukraine. And I've got you there giving out billions, and your son is working for a big crook. What's done about this article? Not yet. Nothing. Zero. Never followed up by the press. Never followed up by Obama. Never followed up by law enforcement. What's ever happened to law enforcement? Where is it? Imagine if the name here were Trump. Imagine. This is so indicative of a major problem that we have in our country, that this article gets printed and absolutely nothing is done about it. So he had to have known that his son was involved with Burisma, and Obama had to have known. So when he says he didn't know, that's another of his many, many lies. There's a pattern of what's going on here. It's not just coincidence. Point man really means something, and it's going to mean something criminal. What point man means is Obama, every time he appointed Biden failed in his mission for the U.S., and the Biden family enterprise came out with millions. In Iraq, he was named point man. He failed to get a status of forces agreement. And Joe fails to do anything about corruption in Ukraine. He makes it worse. And he does nothing about Russia. In fact, the Obama administration wouldn't even give the Ukrainians lethal weapons. What were they going to defend themselves with slingshots? I mean, he was utter failure as point man for Ukraine. And then we go to China. And in China, he's supposed to get the Chinese to back off their military moves toward the islands that were in dispute with Japan. He flies over. He brings Hunter Biden. He once again fails in his mission. China doesn't back off. China gets even more aggressive. He's criticized for failing. What's not caught is Hunter Biden makes a big score on this one, because within 8 to 12 days after they return, after he brought Hunter Biden over on Air Force Two, China becomes, the Bank of China, owned by the Chinese government, becomes partners with Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, until Devin Archer is convicted of insider trading, Chris Hines, the stepson of the then Secretary of State John Kerry, As I said, the Bank of China, one-third partner. You know what the other one-third partner is? Whitey Bulger's nephew. Now, wait now. I'm not kidding. Can't make this stuff up. Whitey Bulger's nephew. Now, for those of you who don't know who Whitey Bulger is, go watch Jack Nicholson's movie playing his part or all the movies about him. Whitey Bulger was one of the most notorious organized criminals. He ran what would be called the Irish mob in Boston. He murdered lots of people. The FBI got in trouble for covering up some of those murders. He was a fugitive for, I think, 17 years, and he was finally caught. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, he was killed in prison because, among other things, Whitey Bulger apparently was a rat. In addition to being a murderer, an organized criminal, his nephew is part of this fund in which China makes a $1.5 billion commitment. Once again, it's made up of Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, Chris Hines, the Bank of China, which is owned by the Chinese government, and Whitey Bulger's nephew, the son of the Vice President of the United States, who's supposed to negotiate tough and hard with China, has a son who's a business partner of the government of China. And nobody cares. Is there something wrong with us? Yes, and we'll go into that in later episodes. It's called the double standard, and it's disgusting, and it is destroying, eviscerating justice in America. Everything I just told you about Iraq and we know about Ukraine and about China, you're going to say, well, what does that have to do with this? We call those in the law prior similar acts. They use to show your intent. They use to show your tendency toward corruption. I believe they'd be admissible in this case. It'd be an argument with the judge, but they'd be admissible in this case. Certainly the first one, certainly the Iraq one. But there's another way it could be done. This case could be a racketeering case. Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization. RICO is the name. Something I know something about. You should know that I was the U.S. attorney who first used the racketeering statute against white-collar crime, against public corruption, against the Teamsters Union, and got control of the Teamsters Union away from the mafia. And I used it to convict the commissioner of the mafia. So I know a lot about the RICO statute. This is a classic RICO case. It would be called the Biden family enterprise. Basically, over a period of years, even going back to when he was in the Senate, which we don't have to go into now, and his family monetized his public office, which means they sold it. And they made hundreds, then thousands, then millions, and then who knows how much. Whether it was the Senate office or his vice president's office, they sold it. There are 3 incidents we've talked about in the Obama administration. There are 2 or 3 that I can think of just off the top of my head before he became a vice president. They're all in the newspapers. They all were ignored. They all involve the same pattern. James or Hunter or some friend involved with them is selling his office. They really don't want that person. That person has no qualifications, but they're paying off Joe to have Joe's influence. There's a bank that did it. I mean, that's what I call a RICO case. So we just take the 3 we've talked about. Each one becomes a RICO predicate. The crime is Hobbs Act extortion, bribery, fraud. It's a very, very good case. Strong evidence. Fits RICO perfectly. And you say to yourself, how is it possible that Donald Trump gets impeached for non-impeachable offenses and Joe Biden isn't even being investigated for crimes that are right in your face? It's because of the double standard, which we'll discuss in later episodes. I think you know what I mean. You know, if the name here were Trump, I wouldn't be having to advocate this way for us just to do the right thing, just to do justice, just to vindicate the honor of the United States of America, which in each one of these countries where the office of vice president was sold, America was made to look foolish. America was made to look corrupt. Every time Biden went to Ukraine and said, don't be corrupt, every Ukrainian laughed at him and they laughed at us. It's got to change. they've got to be held to account. And that's what we're going to continue with. In the next episode, we'll bring you another very, very important witness, and you'll get to hear him. You'll get to hear evidence. Documentary, witness, tapes, none of this Democrat, this person said to this person, said to that person. None of this anonymous whistleblower. We got people who are willing to come to the United States or are in the United States. They're willing to get on a witness stand. They're willing to take an oath. Some of them have already done it. And they're willing to tell you that there was a massive crime and crimes that went on in the Ukraine. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're going to be surprised at how big it gets. So thank you very much for listening. And we'll be back with you very soon.
Please subscribe to our backup channels, Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot channel, BitChute.com/net4Truth USA, and drop.space/@Net4Truth USA. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/Net4Truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.